Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Um, Mohammed,
Oh, hello.
how's it going, man?
Oh, it's. I can hear my kids crying already. That's how it's
Oh,
going.
really?
Yeah, it's bedtime. This is pretty
Yeah,
much
same.
bedtime, isn't it? Yeah.
How come sevens tends to be the standard bedtime for children? Because my brother's children also go to bed at 7. My child
Mm,
goes to bed at 7. My
mm.
sister's children go to bed at 7. Why is that? That 7 is
I
the
don't know.
standard.
I definitely didn't decide it myself. I think maybe my wife did. But then it gives you enough time to have some adult time, without the
Yeah,
kids, and then you can get up as well early enough for them because they're going to get up like 5 or 6 anyway.
yeah. So I don't. I think Zachariah might be going through a bit of a transition actually with his bedtime because he starts at he started going bed at 7ish, and then oh wow, already thank you so much for the support to the stream, Amuna, with £4.99 super chat there. Thank you so much. Do you know Amuna by any chance, Mohammed? I just feel like perhaps you arranged this. This is fraud, perhaps.
Maybe
Okay.
super chat.
Um, where were we at with this? Yeah. So Zachariah's bedtime started at around 7, and then 6. I want to say, and then over time, like over the past few months, it's changed slowly. It became like 6:45, and then 6:30 because he was getting so tired.
Mm,
It was so difficult to drag him for an extra half an hour. That I thought, you know what, if you're that tired, just go to sleep. And he still sleeps 12 hours. So for the past couple of months, he's actually been sleeping from 6:30 till 6:30.
wow, I'm jealous,
Yeah, so I
man.
put him down at 6:45 today. Actually, tried to stretch it out by 15 minutes. Yeah, get cheeky
MashaAllah.
15 minutes sleep in the morning, perhaps.
MashaAllah. How is it though
Yeah.
working from home and having to get involved all the time? What's that like?
It's different. It's very different. And at first, I tried to in the first lockdown for sure. I think I became very frustrated. And I probably wasn't a pleasant person to be around because um because you try and match the productivity level that you get in the office, and that's just you have to accept that that's not the case, especially when you're in a role where you have the the luxury of working for yourself. You shouldn't have that assumption. You shouldn't have that goal of matching that productivity level, because you have to accept that there's other things here that take precedent. Like, I can't just be at home and literally say nobody's allowed to talk to me from 9 to 5 because I have to work. Like, it's unfair. And so this second lockdown, I think, is a lot easier because I am realizing a bit more that
Mm,
that I have to be like present as a dad as well. And so I'm accepting that. And alhamdulillah, to be honest, bro, there's requirements for me at work, and then there's like what I need to do to excel. But like
yeah.
the bare minimum is a lot less than like what I put like in on my plate. So I'm kind of during this lockdown trying to do the bare minimum. Obviously it helps that we have a bit of a team, like a very small team, that so we can like distribute work. But we've definitely moved to a, like, I think in the IT world they call it an agile work like structure, which is basically the fact that we're doing task based work as opposed to hours, right? Like,
Mm,
before we'd be in 9 to 5 in the office, and there's always work that can fill up that 9 to 5. So like work never runs out, right? Like,
yeah.
if something crazy happened where like all of the episodes are scheduled and all of the game stuff is done and website stuff and everything and outreach, we can always like outreach to like more potential businesses, more potential guests,
Yeah.
and come up with more products and so on. So the work technically could never stop. And so that's why obviously a time based thing works generally for us and for most businesses. But now we've like reverted to task based work. So if there's tasks to be done, we get the tasks done. Um, and we're like that with everyone in the team. So no one's expected to put in like a 9 to 5 shift right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's just expected to get their tasks done, and as long as their tasks are done, there's no issue.
But do you feel like there's obviously a greater benefit now that you can literally pop your head around the corner and engage with your family and your son, like whenever you have that sort of short break? Is that something that you might want to keep in the future, even after the lockdown?
I'm quite a workaholic, so yeah, yeah, for sure. But I
Yeah,
am quite a workaholic, and I do like separating my business and work life to my
yeah,
personal life. I do enjoy that separation, and just so I can be the best dad, bro, and like the best like family man. Anyway, I was quite good at shutting off after like 5 or 6 o'clock and coming home and not focusing on work. And in
yeah,
fact, working from home actually blurs those lines. You can't shut off because your machine and your work setup is in your, for me, my bedroom, and so I can't really change that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I suppose for you it's a lot different because you haven't changed. You still obviously being in the emergency services. You work from um, well, you don't have like an office per se
Yeah,
that you work from. So
I spent maybe close to a month off of work. Uh, I think I mentioned last time, and that made me think how much maybe I'm missing out on, the kids and stuff like that. Especially considering they're not really going anywhere at the moment. They haven't got like nursery or school or anything. A lot of places are shut down, um, and obviously missing out on the little things that gets done every day. Um, and unfortunately, for a lot of days I'm asleep because of the night shift. So then the days that I have off, I'm trying to like fix my sleep routine and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, it did make me think like the balance between work and home life and how valuable that is and how quickly, subhanallah, these sort of days just go. You know what I mean? Like now that I've got obviously two boys, it's very easy to visualize how fast, like Suleiman, for example, my oldest has grown because you've got someone to sort of compare it to. You've got the younger one to compare him to. It's just like, oh my God, this is so quick. This is happening so quickly. And um, yeah, it does make you feel a bit guilty in a way. And there's never a day that I leave home for work that I don't feel guilty that I'm saying goodbye. And I remember the
mm,
first day back at work. So then when I told him, I'm going to work, and he was like really upset because he couldn't understand that how I could spend like a whole month with him and then now have to go again. Um, so yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be, especially those that are working from home and that do have kids. They're when it does all sort of fix itself in there is going to be that bit of conflict whether they want to go back in or whether they've enjoyed these moments they've had with their kids. It is difficult. I've tried to do the whole work from home thing with other projects, for example, like a lot of the graphic design stuff, and yeah, it is difficult, especially like this. This is the PC that I use, and it's in the living room, so very difficult to get away from anybody and get my head down. But sometimes you've just got to count your blessings, partner. Like think if things are getting hard, think about what Allah's put, the opportunity that He's put before you. There's a silver lining, I guess, and that is to spend your time with your children and enjoy their company. You know.
do you ever feel working in the job that you work in? Do you feel that stereotypical like when you leave the house and you leave your kids, you're kissing them goodbye? Do you feel
Oh, every day,
um, really
every day, but
like
not
you
just
feel like
because of
this
my
could
job.
be because of
Not
the job that I have? It could literally
no,
be.
it partly maybe because of the job that I have, but also I, anybody who knows me will know that I really emphasize that all the time with friendships, with my wife, our relationship with my family and with my children. I don't hold a grudge. I can't hold a grudge. I have to reconcile any argument there and then. I don't want to leave a room and leave the house with um, without making sure that whatever that final moment was an important one, not only
Mm.
for myself, because if anything happened to the people that I love, I don't think I'd ever be able to forgive myself for not making that a special moment, and vice versa. I know how like powerful, like I know what powerful impact my father had on me growing up. And for those who don't know, my father was diagnosed with um, late stage cancer back in April, I believe, and that made me reevaluate like my whole sort of relationship, not just with him, but relationships in general. Um, and I don't want anything ever to happen to me, and that to then negatively impact my family. My son, my sons, or my wife, especially. If anything was to happen to me, did I leave them with a positive memory, something impactful, something decent, something good to leave behind? Because you know. I try and remind myself of death as whenever I can. My grandfather, I never met him. I was told that he had Hajj money in his pocket and he was struck by a car and sadly died. But it shows you the fragility of life and how it can just go at any point. And yes, included in that is my work. Included in that is, I see a lot of death, I see a lot of violence, I see a lot of negative things, and I deal with a lot of problems. Everything I go to, more or less, 99% of the time is bad news. It's not often that you are called to something that is a positive occasion. I have to deal with the negative things of society, and I don't want to become complacent. I don't want to be desensitized to it. And I don't want to make jokes and like laugh it off like some of my colleagues might do to cope with it. I want to experience it fully. If it's death, because you have a lot of, I have a lot of non-Muslims obviously that I work with that their coping strategy is to laugh things off, right? To make maybe a bit dark humor and stuff, not necessarily make fun of the people, but try and lighten up the mood somehow. And I don't want to allow myself to do that, because that's a slippery slope to not disbelief, but ignorance of the reality of this dunya,
Is your oldest, Suleiman, is he able to understand that, like, our dad's going to a job now and the job that he goes to is dangerous, and so...
Not yet. He's slowly picking it up, but I don't think he's at that age yet where he can really fully understand it. But that's only because of a lack of exposure. I think the older he gets, the more he'll be exposed to what work is, what it means. At the moment, he thinks it's just something I go out and do, just like going to the masjid. Like, he'll just be like, oh, you're going to the masjid? Okay. Oh, you're going to work? Okay. He'll like to pick one or two of those things, and probably because that's the only thing I do. But yeah, definitely, I feel like the main thing is how the Prophet ﷺ speaks about looking at those that have less than us instead of those that have more. And I am surrounded by people every day that are going through worse than what I'm going through, or have less than what I have. Or even with children, actually, like it wasn't too long ago, we dealt with somebody who was done for child neglect in an extreme way. Like there was a couple, actually. There was one where there was a 2-year-old child that was walking around the city for hours, early in the morning. So, and you can imagine lockdown, there's not that many people. So the child wasn't really noticed or picked up on very, very quickly. And imagine hours and hours before their mother called in and said, oh, I'm missing I don't know where my child is, Had another one where someone was so drunk that their baby, very relatively newborn, was crying so much that the neighbors called obviously the police, who smashed the door down to make sure that the baby was okay, to the extent that smashing a door down is quite a loud and aggressive thing, to the extent that the mother herself didn't even wake up because she was so drunk that her door had been smashed in. And we found the baby with a pillow on its face, like suffocating essentially. And it just makes you think, subhanAllah, like look at the blessings that we've been given, and look how some people have those blessings and completely disregard them and don't count them as a blessing, or don't really think about it too much. And look at how many people want the blessings that we have and would do anything for it, and it's from Allah's wisdom that some people are giving it and some people are not. Some people are grateful for it and some people are not. But these thoughts and these, I call them mind games really, and exercises of the mind, to always think about those that are less fortunate than yourself, those that are less grateful than yourself, and to really spend every moment you can being grateful and making sure that whatever, I'm not saying I'm perfect in that, not at all. Obviously, I make mistakes, but the one thing I emphasize all the time is that I don't want to live with the regret of leaving a room or leaving my home and making that last moment, which I always will consider a last moment, a bad one or a negative one, But
yeah, that's really powerful, man.
Yeah.
It is powerful. I think you're right in that fatherhood is definitely like the greatest blessing, man. Like that after Islam, that you can experience as a man anyway. Obviously, motherhood, I'd say, as a woman, not that I know. I'm going down a slippery path here. But it's a beautiful thing, man. And I was speaking about that to actually, I spoke about it on the last podcast episode that I did, and I was saying that fatherhood is like, it's just like when you become a father, um you also become so inquisitive about fatherhood, don't you?
Mm.
Because you want to know how to be the best father, or you want to know how other people are doing it. You get all these questions, and you want to make sure you do it justice, isn't it? Like last week's episode, you mentioned that something as small as one of your boys being interested in dinosaurs, it makes you want to be interested in dinosaurs just so that you can have a relationship with your son. And that's such a powerful thing, because in no other time would you experience yourself doing things like, I think that fatherhood's allowed me to be a child again. Like I was telling my wife that I'm so excited about Zechariah as he grows a bit older than he is now, because I'm going to get to relive the toys that I used to love when I was younger. Like, for example, I used to really like I had this action man that had like a parachute, and he had like a truck, like a really cool truck, bro. Like the truck like shot guns out and all this kind of stuff. And I'm excited for him to like have all these kind of boyish kind of toys that I used to enjoy, and then play. I almost get to play with them again, guilt free, because I have the excuse of the fact that I'm just playing with them with Zechariah. And it's already kind of started. Like I bought him a drill the other day. It's a drill that literally looks like a real drill. It's by I think it's called Black and Decker. Tool company. It's literally one by them, but it's just fake, and it does everything a real drill does, but it's just for really small children. But really, I'm buying it for myself.
True.
It's another drill, but the drill bits are a bit small because he's a bit young. So I put those away for now, but the actual drill itself, like you press it and it like turns around and stuff like that. It's fun, man. Like just like re-experiencing those things and seeing it through the eyes of your child and all of that kind of stuff is really, really cool. I had a one note that I wrote earlier in the week for this week's episode of Dad's Dunya.
Go on.
Because it crossed my mind. Well, I experienced something and I was like, oh, this would be a really interesting thing for us to discuss on Dad's Dunya. It's a bit light. Well, I say it's lighter because I'm sure you and I will make light of it and have some fun with the topic, but it's definitely very dark when you deep like how serious it is. But I at times there's benefit in like putting something on, right, to distract your child. Like for example, like he doesn't sit still for a nappy change, so I would definitely utilize like putting a video on while I'm changing his nappy just so he stays still, right, and stuff like that. And so there was this cartoon on that we've never put on for him before. Well, I don't remember we've ever put on for him before, but I think I just like chose one at random that looked safe, right? Like looked like it was harmless, and it was a cartoon, bro, for his age. That was cars that would talk to each other and stuff. So the cars, right? Cars. So it's definitely for his age, right? Like the way it's animated and everything, you could tell it's for babies. And bro, I kid you not, this was one of the scenes, right? And I turned it off after this. Actually, I don't even know if I turned it off after this. I can't remember. I hope I did.
Okay,
but it was just shocking. This was one of the scenes, bro. So this car, he's a child car, like a young car. He lives with his mum and dad, and his younger sibling. And the mum and dad are going out, right? The mum and dad cars are going out for like whatever. And it turns out that the neighbors are also going out, right? The neighbors who are also cars are going out, right? And so this young car, he goes, oh, if mum and dad are going out today and the neighbors are going out today, then who's going to babysit us tonight? And then like there was this other car, right? Now here's where it gets a bit like dodgy, right? And she is a female car who is older than him, and she's like, oh, like I'm going to be babysitting you guys tonight. And then he goes into this like infatuation because like basically he fancies the babysitter, right? And she's like an older female, and he's like this like for all intents and purposes like a teenage car, right? But they really like make it so obvious, and it's so like dirty, bro. Like so then the rest of the show was him trying to show that babysitter that he's not a kid. And so like the babysitter would be like, all right, like it's bath time now, and he'd be like, yeah, it's bath time, to his little sibling. I'd be like, don't worry about me, I bath myself. Like, and she's like, okay. And the whole show is like him like trying to prove that he's like this thing, and the whole premise of that episode was it was really like like she was all like this provocative babysitter car, and he's like this guy who's being babysat who wants to like impress the babysitter, and it's just so, it was so obvious what they were doing with it. And I
Yeah,
was
of
just
course.
thinking, like, I can't believe that this, like, okay, so for example, earlier, I think earlier in that episode that I overheard, right? Like, one of the cars that was doing something, and the other car was like, oh, like, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know, like being like mischievous or whatever. And the other car goes, oh, uh, my mum said I shouldn't be doing. My mum wouldn't be happy if I was doing this. And the other car goes, oh, but like, you know, rules are there to be broken or something. And I was like, that's a bit uh
mm.
of a red line, but whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you do
yeah, of
hear of
course.
those kind of things in cartoons, and you're like,
Yeah,
it's almost like one of those things. Like, these things just happen now. But it's even then, it's a bit like, look, you shouldn't really be teaching children like not to listen to their parents, innit? But
yeah,
anyway, later though, that babysitter thing happened. I thought, nah, man, no way. Like, it was
yeah,
proper, and the way they displayed it as well was really like, I'm playing it down, bro. It was really
yeah.
like when they showed this car, she was like this, like, he, like, it went like all like, oh, like, you know what I mean, like proper,
Yeah,
like, oh, this like
yeah, I get you.
young female car babysitter. She's looking. It was just a bit much, bro, man. I was just shocked by it. We
It's always
obviously, I
like
don't.
that. Like
Surprising
these,
though, isn't it?
yeah, but these themes run throughout like you mentioned about disobedience. Like pop culture defines, child and teenage disobedience as a God-given right to that age group. Like they should disobey and they should rebel and all this stuff. And like that, how many themes do you have of any sort of show where it's like the parent is telling them like, oh, don't go and do this, or don't go to this place or whatever. The child's like, no, you don't get it. I have to go because of, whatever MacGuffin they need
Yeah.
to, and they disobey the parent. And then in the end of the movie, they prove to their parent, oh yeah, they were right for disobeying them and going against their wishes because they saved the day. But you know what I mean? This kind of thing. So it's always given this sort of false sense of I don't know, maybe superiority or know-it-allness to the kids. And it's always like, oh, the parents don't get it. They'll never get it. We need to do it without them. We need to do it without their help. That kind of thing. Um, yeah. And then I remember once I was listening to Freshly Grounded, funnily enough, and I remember Sam talking about like Peppa Pig and how
Yeah.
like Peppa Pig will sort of the show will sort of make out the father to be,
Like
a
some
bit
kind of
of a,
joke. Yeah, I mean, I remember him
yeah,
saying
like a
that. I've
joke
not
and a
watched.
dunce and stuff. So I've only really become exposed to it when Suleiman put it on this one time, and I kind of thought, okay, let me observe. And I did observe, and it was exactly like. But then again, I think back to me growing up, and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of like what The Simpsons was. Like Homer Simpson was absolutely that kind of character where he was a joke,
Yeah,
always
yeah,
a
yeah,
joke.
yeah.
But it's
I
interesting.
never watched Simpsons, bro. You know that?
Really, it's funnily enough, then it was interesting because growing up, I identified a lot with his son Bart Simpson, and now when I like kind of look into some clips and stuff, I do identify way more with the father, and it kind of it makes me think actually about even what you were saying earlier about how it makes you want to become you getting toys for Zakaria is like you being a child again. For me, it's like connecting with my own dad, because there's a lot about my dad that I never understood. I didn't understand. I didn't know what he thought. He wasn't very vocal about his feelings. But now that I've got my own son, I'm like, oh, the way I feel now must be how my dad felt. The way I'm thinking now must be how my dad thought when he looked at me, And then actually it makes you value your own parents' sort of thoughts and feelings towards you, which you may never have heard, you may have never have understood. Because in that moment, Faisal, when you're looking at your son, is like a carbon copy of how your father may have looked at you. That feeling that you had, that rush of emotion you had when your son was born, which I'm sure was an incredible one. It must have been the same sort of exact feeling, like carbon copy that your father had, even though you were never there to experience that. You were never there to ask him how he felt. And even if he was to describe it to you now, and even if you had that relationship where he has the engaging vocabulary to sort of engage with you, it would never be the same as being there and feeling it yourself. But subhanAllah, Allah has given that to you, and now I bet you understand your father now more than you did before you had kids yourself.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
my dad's also coming to an age now where he's so my dad's really changed, bro. And he might be watching this because now that we did the Mufti Menk episode, like he knows of Freshly Grounded. Like
Oh,
he
biggest fan.
he watched that episode. He rang me today. He was like, "Oh, I watched the episode. MashaAllah, well done." So he could be watching this.
Yeah.
But my dad's really changed in recent months, right? And it's amazing, bro. Like, you know what? I had a great relationship with my dad all my life, alhamdulillah. And he's been such an amazing dad. But it's really enjoyable now, the phase that we're at now. And it's actually my favorite so far. And I think it might be because I'm now an adult and I'm a dad, and he's getting older now, he's a granddad, that maybe now he can enjoy fatherhood and be friends with his kids. Maybe that's what it is, because perhaps growing up he's always had to be the disciplinary, he's had to look after us, he's had to protect us, he's had to support us financially. And so when you have all of those responsibilities, you can't, it's very difficult to then befriend that person, because you have to put your responsibilities first. As much as he may have wanted to be our friend all of those times, he had to be the dad and therefore look after us and put that as a priority. But now that we're all able to stand on our own 2 feet, alhamdulillah, he is more of a friend now, as a still a father, and we can look to him for advice and stuff, but definitely like more of a friend. And he's so enjoyable, bro. And I've only seen that change in the last 6 months. Like, it's really, really something new that I'm experiencing, that all of us are experiencing, and it's wonderful, man. So I look forward to that stage of fatherhood where I can transition from being a disciplinary to Zechariah, and I can transition to be and I can transition to being his friend. And perhaps that will be, inshallah, 20 years time, when I feel comfortable that he's both emotionally and financially stable. Then it will transition to that. But I do, as much as I want to enjoy every aspect of fatherhood, I'm always constantly looking forward to the next part of fatherhood. And I just want to also say a big thank you to Dadhood, who just gave us a super chat. Thank you for supporting the stream. And Dadhood says, may Allah bless this initiative, we definitely need more. Thank you so much. And such a it seems, I've not seen your guys' channel, but it seems like a very similar initiative that you guys seem to be running. So Jazakallah khair for that support. It really, really means a lot.
Alhamdulillah. Bro, I think, once again, doing a bit of a thought experiment, but the same way now you're talking about your dad and how he's changed and stuff. Imagine your son at your age talking about you and how you've developed and stuff like that. Like, those thoughts, man, they occupy my mind all the time about my son being at the age I'm at now, and how that makes me sort of think, I don't know, I get lost in those kind of thoughts. Like, how is my son going to see me, and what sort of experiences have I given him, or what kind of relationship are we going to have? One thing I spoke to my dad about. I spoke to my dad about something recently where it was like, he is now obviously older than his father ever was when he was alive.
Okay.
And I was, that concept really fascinated me. Imagine you, from looking up to your dad to then being at an age where now you kind of look not down at him, but you've now experienced more than he would have done, and you're now older than he ever got to be in the dunya. Something that you kind of surpassed your father in age, in a theoretical sort of sense, because they never lived that long in the dunya. And how that would make a parent feel, how that would make somebody feel. Would you start looking at your father as a younger person and think about the decisions he made at that particular age, if anything was to ever happen? I think this is why it's important to leave behind very clear messaging and clear.
We seem to be having a bit of a technical mishap with Mohammed, but I think you're back. But yeah, I agree, man. I think but however, my opinion is, and it's just opinion because I haven't been through it, but my opinion is that you wouldn't go through that. You wouldn't think, oh, now I'm older than what my dad would have been as a father, and therefore like I'm more perhaps like advanced than him in that way. And the reason I think that you wouldn't think that is because I think you always look at your dad as your dad. and you always see them
Mm,
as like your like superior to you, right? Like in terms
yeah.
of experience and knowledge. Even I'd imagine that, because in some ways we're more advanced than our fathers in some things, like maybe like technology or whatever, like we spoke about last week. But that doesn't diminish your perspective of your dad, does it? It seems we're having some true difficulties with Mohammed at this point, which would sadly mean we'd have to cut the episode short. So I hope we don't have to cut the episode 30 minutes short. Inshallah, we can get this working. Mohammed, there seems to be a few issues with your connection. You're back now, but
Am I? I can't see
yeah.
anything on my end, but we'll see.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's paused a few
Yeah.
times now.
Let's have a
We'll,
look.
we'll carry on, bro. The worst case scenario, we've done a great 30 minutes, but inshallah we can carry on for the next 30. I think if it happens again, bro, try switch to your personal hotspot. I do that quite often if I have an issue, and I often find that my personal hotspot's a lot faster, or like perhaps
Mm,
maybe more trustworthy at times. Like, because it could be that there's a issue in your area that they're like working on, whereas with personal hotspot it wouldn't be that wouldn't be the case.
it seems okay now. I haven't
Yeah, it
got.
does seem fine.
Okay, we'll carry on, inshallah.
Yeah,
Uh, well, yeah, I was saying how yeah, his father had never become a grandfather when he was alive, so he's now experiencing all these things that he doesn't have a blueprint for, if you
mm.
know what I mean. Like, it's uncharted territory for him. So how does he act, and what kind of, what kind of role model does he have to follow in that regard? Um,
I suppose
but
that's
yeah, I
true for
thought,
my granddad as well. Actually, I'd never thought about
mm,
that, but my dad's dad passed away quite early in my dad's life.
yeah,
I want to say when my dad was 16,
oh,
maybe.
subhanallah,
Um,
yeah,
and so I suppose that's true on my end as well. I never considered that though. That's a really interesting thought.
mm, mm,
I kind of like on my dad's side. I've always kind of seen my dad as I've always seen him as the person where like the family tree has started almost,
yeah,
because things really changed after my dad, because obviously before my dad's tree was very like in Pakistan, right? And then like he came over here. And so um I kind of see like the top of our family tree as my dad, and then like things going down. Especially because then like my dad's dad, like I said, had passed away early, so we never met him. We weren't
mm,
even alive. And so I have no connection like in terms of lineage higher than my
mm,
dad in terms of like dads, right? On my mum's side, obviously, my granddad was very much so in my life before he died, um, which was really nice and cool. So yeah,
there's a lot of value in sort of holding that on, though. I can see obviously the Arabs of Quraysh, for example,
yeah,
have held that really dearly, and that was something that they all knew, their ancestors and the names of such and such and so and so. It's something I do want to kind of revive in my family. Like, it's similar to you, I guess. I see a lot of it starting with my dad, because, or my granddad at least, because I don't really hear too much, or I don't really know too much about those that came before, and that kind of story is a bit lost to me. But yeah, I want to be able to document a lot of stuff for my kids when they're older, because going back to what we said earlier, you just don't know how long you're going to be around for. I want to, have things written down, have things recorded. I mean, one of the greatest things that you've got, and if Allah preserves it, is, your podcasts, your sort of things like that, where your thoughts are recorded as and when in that time. And that is something
mm,
that your son can be your age one day, listening to your thoughts at that age, live that experience,
wow,
think like you, and compare his
wow,
thoughts
what an
and his,
amazing thought.
because when you're, hypothetically 50 years old, okay, your son isn't going to be
Still
able to
doing
connect
freshly
to you.
grounded,
Things are, well, I don't know, your son may be the one who inherits it, but
perhaps. He'd have to
you're
fight me for it.
okay.
Yeah,
But he's not going to be able to click with you, but he may find that he clicks more with the younger version of you, and actually that
yeah,
actually develops your connection way more, because then he can be like, oh, I am, look how similar I am to my dad. Like, I'd love to be able to see my dad at the age he was, at my age basically, and just compare how similar we may have been and what our thought processes were. But now we've got such an incredible piece of
wow.
technology that I would suggest you upload onto some extremely secure hard drive, and keep those thoughts there, like a time capsule. It's fascinating. It's something that's never really, we can't say, especially in our at least in our families, in our generations, that is something that's ever been experienced before, unless you're talking about writings. Like I remember once I came across, my mum had showed me a notebook that my dad had written, like loads of sort of poetry and thoughts and pieces that he was thinking about, at a difficult time in his life. And he can't have been that much older than me at the time. But reading through all that stuff, I was like, SubhanAllah, who is this man? Because it just shows you how people change so much. Or when, responsibilities get chucked their way, when things change, when life changes occur. I think one of the biggest things that impacted my father was losing his own father. So comparing these writings that he had, it did remind me of some of the stuff I'd written and the thoughts that I'd had. So, yeah, doing your son a favor and being able to connect with him on that level, and I think he will respect you more when he can identify with you more and identify your thought pattern as you grow up. Because you telling him stuff isn't going to always connect, but him discovering you on his own and discovering what you were about and the things that were important to you may hold more weight to him, subhanAllah.
Yeah, and I think it could also work to my disadvantage. Like I could be like telling him off for doing something, and he'd be like, "Look, Dad, you did it when you were that age." I'm like, "Oh, damn it!" You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Like, because at this age, like, you're a bit more like risky. Like you're more like you're less risk averse, right, and stuff.
True.
Whereas when you get older, you're going to be a bit more. And so he'll be like, "Dad, like you used to be like that," and I'm like, "Oh man, you're right."
Yeah.
He'll he'll be like, "Dad, go to episode 34 at 15 minutes in." Oh man.
SubhanAllah, yeah. It's wild, bro. But it makes you think, though, and it should make everybody, the guys listening, about what you're putting out there. A lot of people have, obviously, the internet can have an imprint that doesn't really disappear. There's a lot of things that can go viral. You don't want to become a meme, Oh my God, I'd hate to be a meme. 10 years ago, you still get memes from 10 years ago, subhanAllah, that are popping up, right? So time doesn't necessarily erase all things like it used to. So you could easily become some sort of meme or some sort of laughing stock or a joke, or make a very bad decision of posting something online that can then come back to bite you in 10 years' time when your kids are fully able to comprehend. 11-year-olds now are, pretty much young adults in the sense that they can perceive and understand and use the internet and social media and God knows what else. That's why I think it's important to bear that in mind as well. This is uncharted territory for a lot of us, and we need to remember how we spoke about last episode, how we think we're going to be able to keep up, but we're already being faced with something that is uncharted territory that there's no blueprint for. The decisions and stuff that was documented that my parents may have made when they were younger, that's completely disappeared. Like, there's no evidence of that. I can't judge that because I can't see it. The things we do now, a lot of it is there to see and remains and will remain for many, many years. So, especially for, people, I suppose, maybe more so yourself, but people like that on any sort of platform on social media or any sort of content creation thing, whatever it is they do, it can stay for a very, very long time, subhanAllah.
Yeah, agreed. I have a point on that. I have a question I want to ask you, but before we do, I just want to say Jazakallah khair to Abu Zaid, who for supporting the podcast with Super Chat. Thank you so much for supporting the stream. It really does mean a lot to us, that you guys support us and you guys support the stream and that you guys give us such amazing feedback. And Abu Zaid asks a question, Mohammed, which I'm going to hand over to you. He says, I'd love to hear any advice for a young brother about to get married from such relatable brothers. Why don't you give a quick fire point?
Okay.
And we'll give a quick fire point each.
My one thing is to really focus on your intention for getting married, okay, and broaden that so that encompasses the importance of building a family. Because some people can get lost in the thought of getting married for just themselves, just for that relationship that they want to establish, as opposed to this is the building block of a family unit, a structure. You could be really fixated on building the foundation of a house and want to make a beautiful marble floor, not realizing that floor has to support, a few rooms, a roof, a whole structure on top of it. And maybe you can. I'm comparing women to a marble floor, subhanallah. But you know what I'm trying to say.
Dangerous territory,
Yeah,
Mohammed.
dangerous territory. Don't compare
Tread
women to
very
anything other
carefully.
than themselves. No, it's listen. Ultimately, to water it down as much as I possibly can, this is the mother of your future children, and you want to be with somebody that is forever going to be on the same page, especially when it comes to the deen. Ultimately speaking, yes, you're going to
Yeah,
differ. Yes, you're going to have different opinions, but if you can both agree that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's pleasure is the most important thing, then bi'idhnillah, everything else should fall into place.
inshallah. Yeah, my advice would be, I suppose, like a quicker piece of advice that I could give, because I could give advice that like could go on, but a quick piece of advice would be communication being just like so important. You know, communicate as much as possible with each other, and that's always gonna work in your favor, or
Mm.
most of the time it's gonna work in your favor. Obviously, you have to know what to omit saying. Sometimes it is better to stay silent, but for the most part, just like over communicating
Mm.
to save yourself from issues is really really important. Okay, Mohammed, I'll go back to the question that I had for you. That I thought would be quite interesting. So the question is, what one thing do you want to would you love and you put importance on passing on to your children, um, other than the deen, other than Islam? So what do you want? What information do you want them? What information do you want to pass on to them, other than the obvious, which is like fear Allah?
Interesting question. The deen encompasses so much, so it's difficult to
Well, so
give
obviously,
you.
naturally, because the deen it does encompass everything,
Yeah,
it'll be like
no,
there
of
will be an
course.
element of it within the deen, but try and
Let's
isolate for
think.
the sake of this discussion.
I think one of the most important things is to be and to remain connected to to each other.
Oh,
Um,
that's a good
I,
one.
I think yeah, my biggest fear is that
That's a really good one.
there's a history of obviously family, not just with my family, but any family. Like there's always arguments and sometimes there's feuds. And I grew up sometimes even when I was abroad with families feuding, even though like we lived in a village where everyone was related, there was always so many problems and this person didn't want to speak to this person. And actually we all, if you go up the family tree, we're all actually cousins and, God knows what else. So that's one thing. I think one of my biggest fears is like you've got this family unit, right? And you're under all one roof, and Allah knows best how many kids I will end up with. But I don't want it to reach a day where something happens and they don't have that connection. And I really
Mm.
want, like right now, seeing them play with each other is absolutely phenomenal to me, and it just makes me so happy seeing them, laugh and play with each other and stuff. And for that to possibly be hampered or end one day through something petty and something not important is really like worries me. I'll be honest. So I really want them to sort of learn to forgive each other and have mercy on each other and support each other and always be there for each other. Like this world can be really difficult. Especially if one day they have sisters, for example. Like I've got sisters myself, and I they're not married yet, but one day they may be, and if they ever come to harm or if something ever happens to them, I want to be able to just be there. I want to be able to support them. I don't want. My dad feels that way now. Like I said, my dad is obviously, quite poorly. But his concerns are like his kids now. Are they going to look after each other? Are they going to be able to support each other when he's gone and this sort of thing? So, yeah, definitely, Akhi, just that connection, the ties of kinship to remain strong is my biggest wish that I can pass on, bi'idhnillah.
That's a really good one because my one was money. um, I but yours is better actually.
Oh
But my
man.
point is like I would like to pass on to them, as early as possible. Explain to them the importance of um, being smart and
Mm,
having good money ethics and morals, right? Like because money is something that everybody has to have a relationship with, and
yeah.
it's actually a big part of life, but it shouldn't be. Like it's too big part of it becomes too big a part of everyone's lives, right? But it's just money is just meant to be a vehicle. Like my dad taught us that as well. Like money is not the end goal. Money is a vehicle that gets you to a destination, and that's all it should be. And I would like to instill that in them early. So teach them stuff like, for example, like basic principles from early, like sadaqah, and about how it doesn't
Mm.
it doesn't decrease wealth, right? So
Yeah.
never feel guilty about giving money, even if you don't have a lot and you give a little from your little that you have. It's fine, and you mentally don't get yourself thinking that you're going to lose it because it's sadaqah. You'll be
Mm.
fine.
Mm.
Other things like, understanding etiquettes when spending, which I think like ended up making a lot of mistakes in. So understanding, because I think that's a really good life skill to then take you. And I've seen people around me who have had stuff like that instilled in them from children, and
Mm.
now they've grown up and they're really, really financially intellectual.
Mm.
They have great financial intellect. They have great financial understanding, whereabouts. What is it called when, like, for example, your surroundings, like. Let's say, for an example, you're a professional footballer. Like
Yeah.
you understand your bearings. Like, all right, there's a guy there. He might try and come. He might try and come to me from my left. There's a baller there. So if the ball comes to me from there, I'm like, you understand the game and the science of it
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so immaculately, and so like it's with so much expertise that you don't have to think about it. You can have that kind of relationship with money. So again, it's not about building wealth. It's just about
Yeah.
understanding how to maneuver it.
Yeah.
I'd love for them to have that knowledge, because I think in marriage, in life, that will really help them, and they will reduce their amount of debt. Because money's not about how much you have; it's about how you manage and
Yeah.
use it, isn't it?
It's like it's that concept of like financial fortitude. I mean, you could fall into you can fall into being a parent who just says, "Oh, get this job, like, or study this to get this job, study this to," but there isn't this concept of what to do with money, right? Once you get
Yeah.
it, what do you do with it? The concept of like investing money was something completely foreign to me until about 6 months ago, or when, and now that I've discovered that and I'm engaged in that, I think, subhanAllah, this is one of the most valuable tools that has ever existed, for wealth creation, wealth preservation, and that sort of thing, that can lead to your lineage being free from having to ask for those, for ask from that, the being the
Yeah,
lower hand
the
is
upper
what most
hand. Yeah, the upper
upper
hand
hand and
is
lower hand.
better than the
Yeah,
lower hand, right?
exactly. But then teaching the etiquettes, like you said, is very important, because
Yeah.
your biggest fear, Faisal, is going to be being a successful and wealthy man, bi'idhnillah, but then your kids not knowing that struggle that led you there, and then being born into a certain type of lifestyle and not appreciating it, and then being frivolous. But this is important to educate. And I think, you see it sometimes. Like, I remember there was an article about like Jackie Chan saying he's never going to give his kids any of his wealth because he wanted them
Yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah.
stuff like
I've
that. And
heard
although,
there's many people who
yeah,
come who say that stuff like that. Yeah.
and I
You know
appreciate
what,
that
bro? I
that may be
think,
extreme, but go on.
yeah, to an extent, yeah, because you want to support your family and stuff. I
Yeah.
think there's a really cool concept about money, and I think it's that money and money management, while I'm not in any position to like really be able to teach it, right, because I've
Yeah.
not mastered it in any way, shape, or form. I think you'd need to come back to me in like 20 years, and I can, as a wise older man, kind of come with some great gems. But what I seem to have started to realize is that most people think that money is a game of maths, right? But really, I think money is like 20% maths and 80%, a conglomeration or concoction of psychology,
Yeah.
of emotions, understanding emotions, emotional stability, emotional independence, of
Yeah.
intellect, of maturity. So all of that, I think, actually makes the 80%, and it's only actually 20% maths. And we have this misconception that money management is actually 100% maths.
Mm.
If this, then that. This costs
Mm.
this much. This is how much money I have coming in, and therefore I need to spend this much. But that's not true, that's not true because emotions play such a big part. Example, you might save. You might go to the gym that costs £30 a month over
Mm.
the gym that costs £50 a month, because you're
Mm.
saving money, even though the gym that costs £50 a month is more. You'd prefer it, but
Yeah.
you're saving that £20, which perhaps is a great decision. However, whenever you go out, because you can't handle the emotion or you're not patient enough to wait to get home to cook food,
Yeah.
you quite regularly, and this is something I even go through quite regularly, you'll stop at a drive-through and get food, right? Because
Yeah.
you haven't built up the you haven't built up the discipline, which is an emotional trait, discipline, and a psychological trait, and a trait almost of the heart, because you haven't built up that discipline. You know you're not going to starve by waiting an extra
Yeah.
20 minutes. You have a fridge and a freezer full of food, and I'm really talking about myself here. And therefore you spend that money, right? And that's
Yeah.
fine. So you've got an emotional discipline problem there, and that actually adds up on a monthly basis to £80 extra a month. So really, you could have mathematically, even though you think, oh, mathematically I'm saving £20 here, really, because your emotions are all not intact, you're actually that £20 that you're saving, you're spending £80 that because of your lack of discipline on food at times where you don't need to, and therefore you're actually in loss of £60. And so mathematically, that's all wrong. So money's not a game of maths in any
No,
way,
of
shape, or
course.
form. It's actually a game of, like I said, psychology and mainly I'd say like psychology, really, isn't it?
It's also what you will allow and encourage and accept of yourself. So when it comes to, like for me, I can only speak about myself. There are some things that I will always feel guilty spending money on, and I'll avoid non-stop, which is like for me, I know it's really silly, but like maybe clothing, right? So clothing for myself, I feel really, unless it's something really sort of not cheap in material, but like I can say, okay, that's fine. I need that. I do need a new jumper. I don't get
Yeah.
one because it looks good all the time. I used to be into that sort of stuff, but I kind of buy clothes now when I know that, okay, I need a new jumper or I need a new t-shirt because this one's getting very old or this one's ripped or whatever. However, I could pick up a jumper for 20 quid and think, no, I can't justify buying that. But if my kids or me and my wife and kids are out and they're getting a bit hungry, I'm like, yeah, I'll drop 50-60 quid on a takeaway for them or something special without
Yeah.
oh
Yeah,
I'm
go
still
on.
here.
Without what? Oh, without
Sorry,
hesitating.
without batting an eyelid. Like I wouldn't bat
Yeah,
an eyelid with certain things.
of
Certain
course.
expenditure doesn't, especially if it's for my family, doesn't even bother me in the slightest. But then the
Bro, and that's
moment,
how it should be. And,
yeah,
and and that's
possibly,
that's
yeah,
what I'm talking about. What I want to teach my children. Like, I don't want to
mm,
teach them how to be smart with money mathematically. That's not what I want to teach them. I want to teach
yeah,
them the relationship that they should have with money, and that money is not about how much you have. It's about the barakah in it, and
yeah,
also the fact that um like things like the fact that never hesitate to give sadaqah. If you feel like giving it, give it. And that is an issue that's mathematically incorrect. Of course, it's
mm,
mathematically incorrect. But when, like I said, we're not talking about maths here. Allah is the one who is ar-razaq. He is the one who is in
mm,
control of your wealth, and you're giving money for His sake. And His promise is that He will increase it if you give it. So
mm.
now I've got to tell them that's the kind of stuff I want to teach them, because the maths can get wrong. Do you know what I mean, bro?
Yeah,
And this is
yeah, of
the
course.
deen is a much more secure way. And by the way, speaking of that, in the link of this description is a link for today's episode to donate for the mother of our friend. So both Mohammed and I have some mutual friends, and today, was it today, Mohammed?
This morning a bit, yeah, this
This
morning.
morning, their mother passed away. She was in ICU with COVID, and I believe, Mohammed, was she in a coma?
I'm not sure of the details. All I know is, yeah, it was with COVID. She was in hospital. She's been in
May
hospital
Allah
for a
give her
while
Jannah.
now. I mean, and sadly passed away this morning. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And this is us speaking about, parenting, and these brothers of ours have lost their mother, and
Yeah,
in the same way that maybe our children one day will lose us, and if we can make it easier for them to establish a sadaqah jariyah for her, because I believe that's what the
that's what the
the
link is for.
fundraising
Yeah,
is for. Yes, so bi'idhnillah, if anybody has it in them to donate, please do, so that we can ease this situation for the brothers, because truly their mother meant so much to them, just like
Yeah.
many of us and our mothers. And alhamdulillah, we still have our mothers, and I couldn't imagine what they're going through. But it's, you know,
Yeah, and these guys are our age. They're brothers. I think Mooks is probably younger than us, maybe like by a year or two, and then the older
maybe, I
brother
don't know.
is about a year or two older. So really our age. So it shows what age the mum is. May Allah give her Jannah. And the
I
link
mean,
for that. So if you do want to donate to that, guys, the link for that is in our description today for this
mhm.
episode. You'll see it like somewhere near the top. So please do go over to that page and donate. But I actually forgot about mentioning that until we just came up with what we were discussing. So about sadaqah and stuff. So alhamdulillah, Allah reminded us of it.
Alhamdulillah.
But yeah, man. So that's what I would like to teach. That's one of the things that's quite important to me to teach my children, inshallah. So first of all, obviously the deen and everything that comes with it. But like if we go more specific, definitely finances and that relationship is important to me. But like so much is important. And you were mentioning earlier about reading some of your dad's writings from a notebook, and that reminded me of of my granddad. I had a great relationship with my granddad, by the way, and inshallah, may Allah allow me to be alive when I have grandchildren. May Allah bless me with grandchildren, and all of us with grandchildren, because I think the relationship, in fact, with grandparents and their grandchildren is perhaps even more special than a relationship. It seems like that than parents and children. And so, inshallah, we can grow old and do Granddad's Dunya. And that would be an amazing show that we could eventually do. And anyway, I had a great relationship with my granddad, right? And I remember the last thing that he wrote for me. It was a piece of writing that I have I have a picture of. And I still probably have the actual card somewhere, in under my bed or in a box or something, but it's a card that he wrote, and the card said, "Dear Faisal, be happy in your whole life," and that was it. And it said your granddad. That was all he wrote, and he wrote it specifically for me, and I genuinely, the other grandchildren may be upset with me, but I do think that I had the closest relationship with my granddad out of all the grandchildren, and so it meant a lot to me that he wrote that for me, right? And it's in his handwriting, and I have it saved on my phone and stuff like that. That picture, and you got to bear in mind, this is a guy who came from Pakistan, in the 60s or 70s, and therefore for him to write in English as well, he really went the extra mile. And the reason it's special to me is because sometimes, like all of us, I do get sad, right?
Of course.
Like a normal person. And sometimes when I am sad, I'm so happy that I get to remember that, because that's what makes me happy again. I remember that my granddad's last writing to me was, "Be happy in your whole life." And sometimes I think to myself, you know what? I do need to do that. That's actually such a profound thing to write, because if you deep it, be happy your whole life. If I said to you, Mohammed, be happy in your whole life, there'd be times where you're sad and you think, you know what? No, I need to be happy. And sometimes it can be a choice. Sometimes it can be like, no, fix up. So, it reminded me of that. This has been a very emotional and deep podcast. Episode of Dad's Dunya, as opposed to last week's, wasn't it?
I know, but it's true. Actually, it goes right back to what we said at the start. How you make sure and enforce that every moment you could perceive as a possible last moment or a last meeting with somebody, even as mundane as your own family who you see every single day, it's very easy to fall into that false sense of security that you're just going to come back in a couple of hours. Akhi, I can go to the shop. Wallahi al-azim, akhi. Wallahi al-azim. I've got a co-op literally 5 seconds next door to me, and I go there just for some milk or some bread, and I have to make sure, just even though I'm popping out, I have to make sure that whatever moment that was, my son will run up, because we've got a baby gate up the top of the stairs. My son will run up to the stairs. I have to say goodbye to him properly, even if it's just here. I can't
it's beautiful.
possibly think, because it's not about me. It's about him. It's about what he's going to remember, because that will be said to him. Because especially at this age, because he's not going to remember me as much if anything was to happen to me now. And you got me thinking about my own granddad, and he passed away when I was in my early teens. I'm 27 now, so it was a while ago. And I remember last time I saw him, he passed away in Morocco. And he always had this thing where he would tell me not to put my hand on my cheek like that. Like I used to do that a lot, like just, and he
Okay.
hated it.
That's such
He
a
was
granddad thing to say.
yeah, but and I remember,
Ah,
subhanallah, akhi,
such
I
a
can
granddad
see it
thing.
now. You know, when you go abroad and, you know, you see the family and you spend 6 weeks there, and we used to do that all the time. And we're in the car and driving away, and, you know, you're waving away. It's that long road, waving away. And you always have that thought, I wonder if I'll ever see them again. I wonder if I'll ever see my granddad again. And I remember him just waving at me, waving at me, waving at me. And then right at the end, before we turned the corner, he goes like this and he goes like that and goes, so like not to put my hand on my cheek.
Ah,
That was the last, obviously the
oh,
last
what an
time I
amazing
ever saw him.
story.
But yeah, well, it gets me a bit, you know, emotional now thinking about it. But once again, these, akhi, so many people in your life that you know right now that
Yeah.
aren't going to be here, you know, and then you won't. Whether it's yourself, whether it's myself, or, you know, other people go before us. Think about how many people you know, and think
Yeah.
about how many will be left when you're 50, and think about even if you're going to make it to 50, and maybe they
Exactly.
go on without you. Um, and I know death is a bridge to another, you know, another stage of our existence, but it's also that next stage of our existence. We don't know how long that's going to be for. You know, it's a parting that can be for many, many, many years, thousands. You know, there's people that have been in their graves for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
So we can't say for sure how long we'll be apart, and we can't say for sure that we will be reunited unless we, you know, we make dua that Allah
Yeah, I
subhanahu wa
think that's
ta'ala
the more
gives us
important thing, like whether you'll
acceptance.
be reunited, I guess, because with the time thing, I don't know. I think the concept of time changes. Like you just wake up, right? Like, you know, without going too much of fiqh
Of
into it.
course,
Like
but
I don't know if you
it's
experience the thousands of years, right?
yeah, as
But I
well
definitely agree with you.
as much as you know, as much as a lot has been explained for us, there is a relative, you know, it's called an unseen for a reason, because it's
Yeah.
there's a relative unknown towards it. But it reminds me of what you spoke about with Mufti Menk the other night, how he said, you
Oh,
know,
have I
the way
mentioned
he
yet that I've done a podcast with Mufti Meg? No,
oh
joking.
yeah, you do a lot of things with Mufti Menk. You guys
Have I?
are bros, bro.
We're bros
Subhanallah.
now. He
But
posted me on his Insta, bro. That's
oh,
bro level, like,
like bad. But
yeah.
he said how,
That's
you know,
Instagram complete.
it's important to think good of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in
Yeah.
that sense. You know, I could get really hell bent on the thought of, what if I'm never reunited with them? Oh my God, what if that would really, you know, that
Yeah,
would
of
drive me
course.
insane. But I have to fill those thoughts with positive thoughts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have to just almost confirm that, oh yes, we will be reunited bidnillah. Like,
Mm.
as long as I'm doing what I need to do, and I try my best, and I can instill that within them. Um, but I think that's what we're going to start experiencing, akhi, as fathers soon, is that the older our kids get, the more conscious we're going to be of their deen and their, you know, because when they're young, and I'm sure you're feeling that now, when they're young, you're letting a lot of things slide, obviously, because they're kids. They're not, you know, the pen is lifted for them, but slowly you're going to start picking up things that you're not going to want them to have for, you
Mm.
know, when the pen starts writing, you know. So
Yeah, and you don't, and you also want to like set the habits now as well, right? Like
yeah,
take
yeah,
advantage of the fact that the pen is lifted and set
yeah,
those
definitely.
habits. Just to end on a positive note, your son Suleiman Allahu Barak looks exactly like you. You do know
No,
that,
he
right?
doesn't. No, he doesn't, bro. Don't even
No,
start.
bro, exact copy. I was shocked.
No
I
way.
was thinking, yeah. I mean, you took a picture, but that picture that you showed me, by the way, had two sons in there, and
Yes.
based on the theory of last week, there's potential that you're not showing a third, but
No, there is no third spot. Actually, my
uh,
wife really wants a daughter. You know, may Allah bless my wife.
may Allah
Really
bless you
wants
guys
a
with a daughter.
daughter, and you're scaring her now with these talks of a third son.
Yeah, um,
She's already outnumbered.
bro, Suleiman looks. I mean, it's you without a beard. It's
I don't
literally
know.
you without a beard. Has
I
anybody
don't know.
said that to you, or am I
No,
the first?
I'm the complete. I think the complete opposite. You know, my wife is very fair skinned and you know, complete sort of, you know, that yin and yang symbol kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he takes all those features. You saw him, obviously. He's got the very sort of
Now he's got the same because you got very like
oh,
distinctive like
he's got
um
those European features, akhi.
la, 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 la. Your Suleiman looks like you, bro. Suleiman looks like you.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Mohammed, as always, it's been a pleasure, man. And
Always.
inshallah, we'll crack on with this again next week. Obviously, the day to be confirmed.
Yep.
To those listening and watching, Dad's Dunya is going to be a weekly show where we discuss our lives as dads. But the day is not going to be consistent. We have done it on Sunday for the last 2 weeks, but it is dependent upon on Mohammed's like work schedule and stuff and fitting in. So there will be an episode inshallah once a week, but the day is not confirmed. So we will try and give you guys a heads up when and if possible. But to be safe, do subscribe to our channel and also turn on the notifications to be safe, and you will know when we are live. And there was another point I wanted to mention, Mohammed. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try my best, because I experience so much obviously as the week goes on, and with fatherhood being like my number one priority, I do
Yep.
experience a lot that I think, oh, this would be great to discuss. So I'm going to actually carry on what I did last week, which is, noting things down and saying, oh, that would be a great thing to discuss, because
Yeah.
otherwise, like for example, that thing about that cartoon, I would have forgotten it probably if I hadn't
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
noted
Of
it down.
course.
So yeah, I urge you to do the same. It was really beneficial.
Of course. بإذن الله تعالى.
All right, bro. We'll catch up soon with you guys. Jazakallah khair for watching Dad's Dunya episode 2. Do let us know in the comments how you think it's going, what you think about this episode, and inshallah we shall be back next week. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
السلام عليكم.